let's now take a look at the pandemic's impact on higher education. Many institutions were forced to resort to online education, and this brought with it many challenges. So let's discuss this impact with Dr. Linda Meyer from University South Africa. Dr. Meyer, thank you for your time, and good morning to you. We all witnessed what the pandemic did to the education sector, moving online, having to scrabble for resources for those who live far and wide, especially far away from, the actual institutions of higher learning. We're almost 2 years in. Is the impact still dire, or would you say that institutions of higher learning and the education sector have sort of settled?
I think that we have done a lot to settle the system, but we can't be unrealistic. Many of our students need to be on campus. So this is what we've done. Even if there are online modalities that are being offered, students are allowed back onto res, but also allowed back onto campus so that they can access data, etc. You must remember, in a country where only 10% of households have internet connections and many don't have water security or electricity security, we're left with very little option. And we find that this modality of having students on campus works best for us. In some of the very rural campuses, we have just completed the connection for rural campus connectivity, and this has allowed us, with our campuses in the rural areas, to have internet access and availability for students.
Right. With that being said, Doc, I wanted to ask about the intake. Have you seen applications sort of been similar to how it was pre-COVID, especially this year, with those applying? Because I know that with basic education, we oftentimes talk about, young pupils that drop out, that leave school, prefer to get into the market and start working. How has the number of those applying for institutions of higher learning been like in SA?
So it is slightly down, but we must remember that for some universities and some programs, there's always an oversubscription. But we have seen a slight decline. It's approximately 1.6% decline overall in terms of the application numbers.
And with that being said, I spoke about resources earlier on. Those who do then apply get accepted into institutions of higher learning. We know that certain parts of South Africa still experiences the digital divide. Have institutions of higher learning managed to ensure that resources are just of no negotiation in terms of, obviously, if you've got to learn online, you need to have a laptop, you need to have access to the internet. Are those also catered for during this pandemic?
Yes, but we must remember that the broader systemic issue is around NSFAS allowances. And this year we've spent approximately 44 billion rand out of the 113 billion that the Department of Higher Education and Training has as their budget on NSFAS grants. This has meant that block grants have had a decline, and that universities obviously are getting less government subsidy funding. And this also then means that many of the households that didn't previously apply for NSFAS, because of the pandemic, many parents have now lost their jobs, and this means that there's a greater cohort of students in the second and third and fourth year that didn't apply for NSFAS before, but now are eligible and are then being awarded these grants. So the entire system is under huge financial pressure, and I think we're under no delusion that the pressure is going to increase, but we need to do whatever we possibly can to ensure that we never compromise on quality education, but that where it is possible, that we integrate shared service models and we make sure that we make university education accessible and as implementable as possible.
And with that being said, I'm glad you raised the issue around finances and financial challenges due to COVID. What's the strategy in place? Because there are talks about a potential fourth wave. There are talks about, potentially seeing different variants as well, mushrooming out of this pandemic. What's the strategy then from universities' perspective?
So in terms of this, we've been working very closely with the Department of Higher Education and Training and Higher Health. And you'll know that we have 16 vaccination sites. So our strategy is around making vaccines accessible, but making sure that students are able to remain on campus. NSFAS has purchased digital devices, but we've seen a very poor uptake, and universities have, in fact, have other alternative models of having digital equipment available for students. But many students still prefer to have their material in the printed form, and where this has been the most implementable model, this is what we've done. I'm giving away my age, but when we studied, we used to receive our books in the post, and we've seen that some students really have preferred to have it in a physical form.
All right, well, we'll leave it there, Dr. Linda Meyer. Thank you very much for talking to us. Dr. Meyer, they're coming from Universities SA, talking more about the challenges but also strategies in place to ensure that the quality of education is not compromised any further by this pandemic.